Let's try a little something new. Let's cap this card.
Today's video is brought to you by Assiniboia Downs Gaming and Event Center. Be sure to tune into this channel live Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern for Monday Night Lights, hosted by Trust the Profits.
Yeah, Trust the Profits here. We're going to be capping the card for Saratoga, a Wednesday slate on 8/16. I'm trying a little something new here. I'm taking one of our tip sheets that we got coming up here for a Wednesday slate, seeing what you guys think of it, giving you a little bit of exposure to what the tip sheet looks like. Where can you find these? What am I talking about? If you click that join button, you can become a member, Trust the Profits member through YouTube, and through that will give you access to some of the tip sheets that we put out. We've got 3 different tiers: Saturday race, which is going to be the Saturday Saratoga slate. We've got the Gulfstream picks that Alombre puts out when he's feeling well. He's been feeling a little bit under the weather lately, quite a bit so. Been filling in with the Saratoga slates on that. And we've got the Saratoga Club, where I put out all the Saratoga slates coming up for an entire week, pretty much covering it from Wednesday to Sunday. So let's take a look at it now. This is what the slate looks like. Got a whole bunch of different fun columns there to break down the horses. This is a maiden special weight race that we're talking about right here. 88K on turf, 8.5 furlongs. In terms of safe plays, I did go down the list a little bit here. You'll see that we've got a power figure there. The top power figure is an 8.23. If I look at the next tier, they're all really close, 7.39 down to 7.25. And I did reach for Run for Your Honey here. Co-set the pace in the at this distance, the last race did fade to fourth in the same class. So we're hoping to see a little bit of improvement here, maybe hold on to that pace a little bit longer and show something for a win. I do also note here that in terms of the recent race value, has the highest recent race value of any of the horses, and none of the other horses really showed any sort of ability to set pace here. So going to play around and say that that's my safe play here at 4.5 to 1, a 9 to 2, if you will. In terms of value play, I'm going to go right for the top here. We've got 6 to 1 on Bernie Takes Charge. He's run this distance before, closed at the end the last time out, which is what you really want to see, or what I like to see in an 8.5 furlong race, especially for maiden special weight on turf. You're going to look for someone who's a closer here. He did pass a number of horses here, which I'm showing by the 5 closing power here. So even though his pace was very far back, I do show that he's got some kick towards the end. Maybe he'll settle on a little bit better pace this time around, and at 6 to 1, give you some value. All right, moving along. What we got for race 2? So race 2, Twout. Okay, we can do this. Race 2. I see this as being a pretty obvious one here. The safe play being Thestral in this maiden claimer of 1 mile. All the other horses shows being way off the pace. Last 3, he seems to be on the pace or pretty close, with exception to the very last one that he was on. He was 3 tiers off the pace, and his recent race value, he's got a 10.7. All the other horses are falling to below 0 here. And just to let you know how I compute this recent race value, we take a look at the class and also the place that the horses have finished in with respect to the winner. So Thestral was, and you can see by median lengths there in the last 5 races, Thestral has looked the better horse in those races. So easily my top horse here, despite being less than 2 to 1. If you're going to go for a value play, I would go down to the number 3 horse, Graceful. Um, Got a few places and a few shows in 40K class, so definitely a little bit lower of a class than what we're talking about here. But in terms of value in this race, they're hard to speak highly of a lot of these horses. The door is wide open. There's a bunch of them that are going to be way back. Thestral definitely seems like the best single of the day, in my opinion. If you're going to box something in, Graceful might give you some value there. Moving on to race 3. Okay, so the top horse I have here is Suspended Campaign, coming off a win in a lower class. I do like the Rice Ortiz combo here. It's, if you've been watching Saratoga, especially at the beginning, that was a very successful combination. It did have a win recently, as I just noted. Definitely more of a closer. Might get a chance. I mean, there's only 7 horses in this race, and as you can see, the 2 and the 6, and even the 7 from my numbers here might be challenging the pace a little bit here. that's the case, could open up the door for someone like Suspended Campaign to come out and really shine. Next up, I have in terms of a value play, I'm going down to the three there. It is going down a couple tiers, but again, I'm looking ahead and thinking that maybe the pace setters here timed out, Vitemi and it's cold into hair could tire each other out. You might get some play out of that 12-1. So if they end up dueling for the place, could leave the door open for the three. Has had some wins at Belmont and Aqueduct, so definitely not a horse to overlook here. And a little bit of that closing power. You can see it got a two in the closing power for Great Love. At 1 mile, don't pay too much attention to the closing power, but it could help here if you're expecting to see some sort of speed duel for those two horses that have been labeled as pace setters. Okay, moving on. Got race four, a little bit more wide open. The safe play here, I'm going to go with World Traveler. You can see I've got that as my number three horse there. Um, Less than one off the power figure of the top ranked horse. 3.5, sorry, 3.5-1, so 7-2. World Traveler is going to be 71% in the money percentage, potential to close. Yeah, yeah, it's going to be a short race. He's got a little bit of close power. You see, there's a couple pace setters here. Potential. Got pushing the pace, and you got a pace setter down below. We'll see what happens there after scratches happen as well. In terms of value play, I'm going to go up to my second horse here, Three Girls. Between the two, I kind of like Three Girls a little bit better. What I'm going to look for here, recent race value, 11. I like that it's significantly higher than some of the rest of the horses there. Shows he's been racing either in higher classes or finishing closer to the winner in the races he's been in the money 50% of the time, median lengths back 2.5. So definitely a horse at 6-1 that should be in play here, pushing the pace, and then the last time just off the pace. The best median lengths, mentioned that. Yeah, last time out, won by 2+ lengths by staying just off the pace. So he hope you found the winning formula there for Three Girls. I think in terms of a value play, that's definitely one to consider. So let's move along to race five. Um, I'm going to go with the favorite here. Oh, no, not the favorite, but this tied for second favorite, Giroux at 7-2. You can see power figure wise at 10.57. This is a horse. Love him at the distance. Yeah. Sits two tiers back or so off of the pace. You can see not a great recent race value, but finishing in the money 58% of the time. Races in high classes. I think this is part of the reason why you see median lengths is a little bit lower, but his ranking is high. He races in 100K plus races quite frequently, and this time he's dropping down to 70K. So you're hoping to pick up a little bit of that class bounce there. Last two races did struggle compared to his previous 10, which is why I see the 2.3. But again, dropping in class, so you're hoping to see him bounce back and really show you something this time around. In terms of value play, I'm just going to go down one spot here. Comfortable at the distance for Lord Flintstone, the two horse at 8-1. Not a big closer, but should just stay off the pace, behind the pace setters, and show you something nice at the end there. Of the horses I have ranked like in the top 5 or 6, he's the one that has the highest recent race value and the median lengths off just a little bit over 2. Not too shabby. One of the better ones in this race, I would say, especially at an 8-1. And again, these are ranked by the power figure in the race. So let's move on to race 6 here. Race 6, safe play here, Cupid's Heart, 1.8. You can see here Cupid's Heart, median lengths off is just under 1, not too bad. Will likely be a stalker in this race. As you see, last 3 paces, he's been just off the pace. Last race, he was about 2 tiers back. Finished first and second with Flavian Pratt in similar level races at Saratoga. So familiarity with the jockey, familiarity with the track, all these things play into Cupid's Heart's hand really well. I do want to mention the 4 here. I'm very curious to see what happens with this horse. So this is a horse that has been racing in Finger Lakes and Delaware. 5 races, 4 wins, and in those wins, lengths of victory: 8 lengths, 9.5, 5, and 9 3/4. So, 'Cause You're Pretty, the 4 horse, ranked 2 for me. Recent race value 15.9. And really, what that shows you is the distance of wind that that horse has had, because in comparison to this race, the race value that you've seen in those races, the class has been significantly lower than what a lot of these other horses have been racing at. So, definitely a step up in class, different track. So, there's definitely question marks in this horse, but I mean, you got to love those wins by quite high margin of victory there for 'Cause You're Pretty. And 'Cause You're Pretty, not only winning by a lot of lengths, but also the pace setter in pretty much every race he's been in. Going to get a push from the pace from a couple horses here. Three Rivers, the 1A, Starship Defiant, maybe even Mersal. And there's a lot of horses that like to sit just off the pace here. Going to see a lot of clustering, I think, in this one. A lot of clustering at the front. Very curious to see what happens at the pace in the end here. But you're going to you're going to see, 'Cause You're Pretty, want to set the pace, I would imagine. Race 7. Wow, you get the opposite going here. You see the top 3 horses, last 3 paces off the pace, nothing green here, but you see a lot of purple and a lot of red and a lot of orange. So this is going to be a 9 furlong dirt race, 45K claimer. At the top here, I do have South Street, a 1-to-1, so not great odds here, but he is my safe play, right? Grades out to be the best at the distance, shows improvement over the last 3 races, and is my best horse at Saratoga. You can see the recent race value here is 7.8. Um, so yeah, you can see why South Street is the number one here. If we're going to go with a value play, I'm going to drop down 2 spots to the number 9 horse, Happy Bob. Happy Bob is 8-to-1, 57% finish in the money. Not spectacular, but pretty darn good. In terms of recent race value, he's third highest in the race. Uh, but yeah, so similar pace comments, right? He should be an easy pace for him, just off the pace. One of these 2 horses is likely to set the pace, but probably not at a burner's pace. Solid jockey trainer combo. That's one other reason I went with this horse as well. Has yet to go more than 8 furlongs, but in this class, this is probably a good spot for him to actually bump up to that extra furlong, I would say. Probably it's safe to assume that he can handle it if this play in this race, if any race, right? Um, so yeah, at 8-to-1, I'm going to say Happy Bob is my value play in race 7. Moving along, race 8. So my safe play here is Collaboration, 6-to-1. I mean, that for a safe play here, Collaboration is a pretty high value. This is going to be a fun one to see how it plays out. It's a stakes race, 8.5 furlongs on turf. Um, Collaboration, yeah, likes to sit off the pace and charge for first. Struggled the last time out. Looked great in the previous 2 races, though. He had 2 wins previous to the last race he was in, and both of those races were stiffer competition. They were bigger purses, higher class. So I'd like to see a bounce back from Collaboration at 6-to-1. I think he gets some pretty good value if he does bounce back. For value play, now this is an 8.5 furlong turf race. I'd like to point out that there are a number of horses here that have the pace setter tag on them or pushing the pace. A lot of green, a lot of just off the pace. So for this, I'm going to look for one of the closers because we do have 2 horses here with very high closing value. A five. Five is a really really high closing value in my opinion. Um, I could have gone with Thundara, who has one race to his name, finished in the money on that race, won at that race actually. But coming back off of a win in a stakes race like this, I'm a little hesitant to choose Thundara as my value play. I did go a little bit deeper with Burnt again, 15-to-1, median lengths, like half a length off. That seems pretty solid to me. Recent race value 13.7 is right about where you would expect it to be for a race of this size. Um, Deep closer has had some success, gives us value here. 6 also enticing. Yeah, I think if you end up seeing a pace duel here and you see a couple horses burn out, and you want to see that wave, right? You see that wave in the at the stretch in these turf races, especially the longer ones, 8.5 furlongs. That fits the bill. You want to look for those deep closers here, and that is what Burnt again is at 15-to-1. I don't know if he's going to win the race, but I think that he provides some value, especially underneath if you're going to be playing exacta trifecta. And finally, let's close it out on the last race. It is a maiden claimer, is a deep race. I'm assuming that the 11 and the 12 are probably going to scratch as they're also entries, looking to see if we do go off turf. 5 furlongs here. Yeah, you're really scratching to look for some value here. Not a lot of firsters in this race, which is positive. I did go with Show Me Your Heels, coming off a bad 8.5 furlong attempt, but dropping back into a 5 furlong race, dropping back into a 50K class. Show Me Your Heels, even though I have a low recent race value on Show Me Your Heels, I think that this could be a good spot to play this horse. Um, Speed figures all looked pretty good for this horse. Again, if we start scratching out that 8.5 furlong race, definitely looks like one of the better horses in this race. And I do think Army of Thoughts at 12 to 1, that's my value play here. The 8 horse last time out was September. So a bit of a long layoff here. We're talking about 10 months, but ran in a 77K maiden special weight race. So definitely dropping in class today. You hope that the horse is recovered and it's going to show you some value here, especially at 12 to 1. Looked pretty good in that maiden special weight race. Finished a little bit further back than you would hope for, but 5 lengths off, second race out. Maybe learn something along the way. You're hoping that Army of Thoughts can bounce back for you here. Also interesting to note that there are a couple just off the pace horses lower here. Not a lot of pace setters in this race, so I'm curious to see how that does play out. I am guessing that the 5 and the 3 are probably going to be the horses that do set the pace here, even though they just show as being just off the pace. So that is capping the card for me. What do you guys think? Something to do later on? You guys agree with me on the picks here? Who's your big single for the day? Who do you have who do you have that's different than me on any of these races? Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you think. Peace out.